What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 53 of the Hoop Venue podcast and our first episode of the offseason. My name is Tyler, and as always, I'm joined by my great friend Sean. In today's episode, we're going to go back and look at Game 7 of the NBA Finals very briefly because this is our first episode since the Thunder won the championship. And then we're going to kind of recap every move that's been made headed into next season, going back to even just the beginning of June with the Knicks firing Tom Thibodeau, every player option that's been accepted, and all that good stuff. We're just going to go through and pretty much just cover everything that's happened since the beginning of June. And so, yeah, first things first, Sean, what's your initial reaction to OKC winning the championship?
Shout out OKC. They were my title pick heading into the year. Shea caps off one of the better guard seasons we've seen in the modern NBA. Scoring champ, MVP, Finals MVP. Had a great playoff run. I hope that I will never have to hear the words that Shea is not a playoff player ever again. That was the dumbest narrative I'd ever heard, and you dealt with it all season. And I'm glad OKC won because now I feel like when we look back on this OKC team in the future, like in the next 10 years or whatever, maybe not even that long, it kind of, Golden State, I feel like we've kind of looked back on quicker than that. So next, 6 to 10 years, we'll call it. I think them winning the title will benefit them in the long run in terms of how we remember their defense because, if they don't win the title, are we still attaching them in, top 5 defense of all time conversation? Even though that's still probably the case, but the fact that they, did that and got the job done is kind of the icing on the cake. And then last thing, Tyrese Haliburton get healthy. That was I had to take a break from the game. I'm so serious. I had to visibly walk out of the room I was in watching the game and go into another room and just chill by myself for a solid half a quarter. One of the most demoralizing sports moments ever, at least that I've seen. I'm going to say that I've seen. And it sucks because, he came out. It sucks in general, but he came out, guns blazing. It's funny, at least in the moment it was kind of funny, I thought. I even made a tweet said, bro, why can't Hallie always be this aggressive as a player? But he came out, just guns blazing, and to see that injury happen is super unfortunate. And we're not going to get to the whole Achilles talk. There's been a lot of it. I'm not even saying it's bad discourse necessarily. I think some of it's purposeful, but it sucks, and it to a certain extent the league does kind of need to look into it and see if there's any preventative measures that they could take as a league.
Yeah, that was probably the most brutal way to end a season. You have this magical playoff run from start to finish where you defy all odds and do what the Pacers did. Get to the final game. Chips are down. This is it. And you look really, really good to open the game, and then your best player goes down with an injury that'll probably keep him out for the whole of next season as well. Just absolutely brutal. And my heart breaks for the Pacers and Pacers fans because the run that they had was so incredible. And like I said, that's the most brutal way it can possibly end. And that's not to take away from what the Thunder did. The Pacers still made it a competitive game. You get that TJ McConnell quarter, all
Ben
that good
Mathurin
stuff.
trying to play hard at the end of the game.
Yep.
Get a little stat pad for you. I quit.
They
joking.
kept it interesting, but yeah, I don't want to take away from the Thunder because, like you said, this should go down as an all-time great season. Start to finish, they were the best team in basketball. Shea was at worst, the third best player in basketball. One of the best guard seasons, like you said, we've ever seen. And they kind of just answered every question. It was, is this defense going to translate? It was, will they have enough offensive firepower outside of Shea? It was, will J-Dub be a reliable number 2? They pretty much just answered every question between their lineup flexibility. Oh, and I didn't even cover the biggest one. Experience, the whole experience conversation. OKC can't win because they haven't had experience yet. They haven't lost in the conference finals multiple times. They're the youngest team. That really, it matters, but not as much as a lot of people would want you to think. OKC was very clearly the best team, so I'm not going to dock them heading into the playoffs because their players are 24 years old. They're still the best team. And obviously they faced challenges like Denver pushed them to the brink, Indiana pushed them to the brink, but they persevered, and really it feels like they can only go up from here, which is kind of what makes things insane. And maybe that's where we take the conversation now, because the Thunder have not wasted any time working on the margins. They've signed Jay Will to a 3-year contract. They signed AJ Mitchell to a 3-year contract. I believe they traded Dylan Jones for a 2nd-round pick. I think, and then they drafted, and this is going to be your strong suit. Well, actually, I don't even know if you paid that much attention to the draft this year, because I know you did in previous years. My one big gap, I'll say, I don't really know the word I'm looking for as an analyst, is I really don't look too deeply into prospects. I kind of take players for what they are when they enter the league. So yeah, what can you tell me about OKC's draft?
Oh, Thomas Sorber. This is definitely the biggest gap year, if you want to call it, in terms of draft coverage and draft knowledge. But it was honestly unfair that they got Thomas Sorber. I'm not gonna lie, because one of the things that is we've kind of had the conversation a little bit about dynasties and OKC's chances going forward, and cap-wise, things are going to get interesting here pretty soon. You have Chet and J-Dub extensions coming up here very, very soon. You have Lou Dort even, I think. You have to pay Lou Dort again here coming up soon. Caruso is on the books, I want to say, for 2 more years. Could be wrong. And then you have the Shea Supermax. You have Shea on a bargain of a contract right now, comparatively speaking. He's only slated to make $38.3 million this upcoming season. For 25-26, they're still operating as a first apron team. To my understanding of the cap, they're still operating as a first apron team as of right now. Their problem right now is roster spots, which is why they traded Dylan Jones for a 2nd-round pick. But getting Thomas Sorber is, in theory, your perfect Isaiah Hartenstein replacement. To the point where, 26-27, where things could potentially get dicey. When we start talking about we start talking about J-Dub extension, Chet extension, and things of that nature, or especially 27-28 when we're talking Shea money and things like that. Okay, cool, you have Thomas Sorber. The plan should be, in my opinion, you have Jay Will to kind of be your 3rd big for right now. And honestly, Thomas Sorber, just go develop, go play in the G League. And get the practice reps so that, in theory, in 2 years, you have Jay Will on a decently cheap contract that looks like it's going to be regressing too. The hope is, okay, cool, 27-28, and for sure 28-29 at that point, that'd be the 4th year of his deal. But 27-28 going into year 3 is a big you can go. It's Chet, it's Thomas Sorber, and 3rd big, maybe it's still Jay Will, who knows, but the shot blocking, he's still a little raw, but just the lob threat ability and the insane rim protection, honestly. You're just adding another elite vertical athlete with good defensive traits next to already one of the 4 best, defenders on the planet in Chet Holmgren. So I love their pick of getting Thomas Sorber. And if he doesn't pan out, shrug. OKC is loaded with future assets, whether it's picks. Some of these 1st-round picks are eventually going to have to come off of. And you could flip those if you absolutely have to. You could flip those down the road to go get the role players or the other bigs that you might need. But taking the upside swing on a legit defensive prospect, I thought was a really, really wise move by Sam Presti.
Yeah, I think the what's tough with the new CBA is you look at this championship roster the Thunder put together, and you think of it as the 90s Bulls for a second, and it's okay, they can just keep doing this over and over and over again, and someone else has to get a leg up. But with the way the contract situations work in the current NBA, it's not that simple. You can't guarantee that how many years from now you have your Cason Wallace, your Lou Dort, your Alex Caruso, all of this defensive wing depth. You're going to have to make decisions, and we're probably in an era where it's never been more important to draft well, because you need to get guys on bargain contracts. That is the new name of the game is who's going to have the best payroll. Like we talked about it in our last episode where Indiana and OKC, neither of them were in the top 10 in payroll this season, and they were the last two teams standing. They were the two best teams in basketball from January 1st on. Did we just get news? What's going on here?
DeAndre Ayton is finalizing a contract buyout with the Portland Trail Blazers to become a free agent.
Ooh. Okay. Let's wrap up this OKC talk and we'll shift to DeAndre Ayton. Yeah, last thing I just wanted to mention with OKC is like I said, this isn't going to be the best spot to get in-depth draft analysis. They also drafted Neat Clifford, and I don't know anything about, like, genuinely my first look.
OKC's not Neat Clifford. That's Sacramento.
Okay, he was drafted by OKC and then traded to Sacramento?
It was a draft day trade, I believe.
Okay. So what I'm looking at is false information. No. In all seriousness, the first look I'm going to have on 95% of the prospects is Summer League. So you'll get my opinions then. For now, I'm kind of looking at what the teams are doing, like what each roster is doing. Let's talk about DeAndre Ayton, though, because this has kind of been like, I don't want to say a running gag, but my dominating thing where I actually think DeAndre Ayton's a really, really good big who's kind of like, because he was picked so highly and because he
picked over Luka and Trey.
Right, and then he has this massive contract. We automatically, in our heads, like subconsciously hold him to this higher standard where it's like, wait, maybe a 20-10 big who can shoot 50% from mid-range, 75% at the rim, 70% on hook shots is kind of a decent player. And I understand the concerns, like the lack of physicality is a real concern. He doesn't generate free throws. He's not going to be that type of like bang it out in the post big. But as a play finisher, as a pick and roll guy, as a cog in the system defensively, I do think DeAndre Ayton's a really, really good two-way big. And I think whoever gets him is going to immediately reap the benefits.
Yeah, I'm really, really curious what the thought process is. This is where my mind initially goes with the DeAndre Ayton buyout is financially speaking, because if you go to their cap sheet really quickly, if I understand correctly, he was slated to make upwards of $35 million this season. So you get out off of that contract. There's not a lot of cap space. The only cap space team is the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Pistons could be a cap space team, but I think that's the only other one. There's one other team that there is a feasible scenario for them to be a cap space team. But yeah, it's basically just the Nets. So my questioning is Ayton either that like damn desperate to get out of Portland, or is it more so kind of seeing the writing on the wall to a certain extent, be like, look, I'm not getting an extension here. He was extension eligible this summer. I'm not getting an extension. This is the last year of my deal. Let me go somewhere where I can prove that I can contribute to winning. Because I think you had the last legit playoff run before they acquired KD at Phoenix that kind of left a sour taste in everybody's mouth, specifically his interaction with Monty Williams. Then you have the Kevin Durant year, which it was just bad PR for him. It just kind of reinforced the previous season where we, media-wise, it felt like we were all like, it wasn't Monty, it was you. And then you go to Portland, you're not in a competitive situation, whatever the case may be. I wonder if DeAndre Ayton was like, look, if you'll extend me, I'll take the money. But if not, let me get out of here. Go take a full mid-level exception somewhere for like a 1+1, which we'll get to it in a second. But kind of to your point, that's an effing bargain if anybody's able to get him on a $14 million contract. Let me go to a contender that can open up their full mid-level exception, which, like I said, should be around $14 million, and then play on a 1-1 and prove to the rest of the league that, no, I can actually contribute to winning. And some of these concerns that, that you've already kind of touched on, I can prove that those are behind me, whatever the case may be, and go lock up a bigger bag after the case. That's honestly me maybe trying to justify and talk myself into it, but that's where my mind initially goes after seeing that Shams bomb.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I think DeAndre Ayton knows he can be a high level contributor because, like I said, there are concerns with like the forcefulness and whatnot. But let's not forget that we're talking about a player who, in his age 22 season, was a 16-12 big playing 36 minutes a game for a finals team. Like, this guy's a supremely skilled player. He can defend in space, he can protect the rim, he's a big time rebounder on offense and defense. His touch as like a play finisher and like on those floaters and hooks is really only matched by Jokic and Embiid. Like his touch, not even just around the rim, but in the whole painted area, even the mid range is just absurdly good. And I kind of like what you said about the Pistons because is that not the exact ideal big to pair with Cade?
What are you doing with Jalen Duran then?
Well, I think you don't need to choose. Like, what if it's a Gafford and Lively type of thing where we have two bigs who are really good at different things? You obviously probably, I mean, I was going to say you can't play both together, but why not? Like, we're seeing the double big thing kind of come back in a major way. And it's like, if you get these lineups where it's Cade, two shooters, Durant and Ayton, why can't they play together? They're both big time lob threats, both big time offensive rebounders. Ayton can play from mid range out. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's like the best possible destination, which we can get into next. My whole point is DeAndre Ayton is a supremely skilled big. That was the first name I went to when you were asking me who the Lakers should go after as a big. I was like, well, with Luka, let's get freaking Ayton, dude. Like, I'm picturing Cade. Like, imagine Cade having that type of outlet for those little push shots from 8 to 10 feet. Out of pick and roll or out of, as just an isolation driver or out of the mid post, even Ayton flashing to the middle for those little hook shots. Yeah, my whole point with that is Ayton is a supremely skilled offensive big who has defensive utility, and it wasn't an accident that he was a high minute center on a finals team and then a high minute center on a 64 win regular season team the next year. Not an accident.
Yeah, I guess the only thing about I'm reading Shams again to make sure he didn't say anything. Sudden additions to the free agent market. This gives Ayton, a former number one overall pick who went to the finals with the Suns. I think that wording is important. The chance to receive a fresh opportunity as the Trailblazers build around their depth of young bigs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So can you repeat the last part of your? I don't know if you asked a question or.
No, it was just my whole point was like just this is a guy that contending teams should absolutely go after. Like just to throw some numbers at you about what I'm talking about with the touch. I think 2022 was the absolute best season he had pretty clearly.
That's the year after the title, the finals run.
Yeah, after the finals run, that 64-win season. In that season, he shot 79% from 0 to 3 feet, 59% from 3 to 10 feet, and 56% from 10 to 16 feet. And that carried right into the playoffs. 79% from 0 to 3 feet, 59% from 3 to 10 feet, 54% from 10 to 16 feet, 62% from 16 to the three-point line. Like, we're talking about a guy who, we'll call it 3 levels. We'll call it at the rim, short mid-range, like push shots and stuff, and then long mid-range. 3 levels can give you hyper efficiency. So, say what you will about the drawbacks in his game. If you have an elite playmaker who can set him up for those shots anywhere within 16 feet of the basket, you're going to get hyper efficient offensive production. And that's something literally every contending team should be salivating at.
Yeah, that was one of the things I just put on X/Twitter. Like, look, every single contender right now, if you do not have legit 2 bigs, I'm seeing whatever I could do.
There's so many teams I can think of, like Golden State, him like playing off of split action and stuff, or playing from the dunker. Oh my gosh! I mean,
I wonder if Golden State can get to a. I wonder if Golden State can get to a full mid level.
Yeah, I don't know. Milwaukee, what can Milwaukee do? Because that's a big I'd love to have next to Giannis as a dump off guy.
I wonder.
Man, Boston going for the Porzingis replacement, getting DeAndre Ayton. Gee, dude, there's so many teams.
Yeah, I think that's a situation that could. Boston's a situation that could still. Boston's a situation that could still help him. I feel like Golden State does have their non-taxpayer looks like right now.
Okay. What about what if Atlanta went for a double big type of thing with Porzingis and Ayton?
So we're gonna have Porzingis, Ayton, and Okongwu. We're gonna get all the way freaky. And Ace Newell's probably not gonna play a lot this year.
Man, dude, dude, I'm thinking of like so many Ayton destinations. I think the Lakers makes the most sense, just like from a play style standpoint. But even like Orlando,
that might be. Only thing about Orlando that I don't like compared to the other teams is Orlando does have the like table setter of some of these other teams.
True.
Like Golden State, the Lakers, Atlanta, Detroit, any of these teams that we've kind of talked about. Here, I'm gonna list off some bigs. Tell me, like, stop me if I say anybody that you think is better than DeAndre Ayton.
Okay.
All right. Nikola Vucevic.
No.
Jakob Poeltl. Yusuf Nurkic.
No.
Zach Collins. No. Isaiah Stewart. Nope. Onyeka Okongwu. Nope. Daniel Gafford. Steven Adams. Robert Williams.
Oh, okay. Steven Adams makes me think. I'm going to take Ayton, but Steven Adams is one of those like players who little things that they matter a lot. But I would take Ayton.
Okay. Robert Williams.
Ayton.
There's no way he got this contract. Ew. Okay. Rashawn Holmes.
Ayton.
We're just going to skip. Mitchell Robinson.
Ooh. The Mitchell Robinson we saw in the playoffs was scary. This is like the tier of player we're talking about, though.
Yeah.
This is like the tier of player. Who else? Who else you got? We'll say even for that one.
We'll do one more, I guess. We'll do two more, I guess. Wendell Carter.
Ayton.
Jonas Valanciunas.
Ayton.
Okay. So everybody that I just listed off is everybody that is that's basically between 10 and 22-ish $million. Nas Reed, I'll throw that one out there too.
Yeah, Nas Reed. Okay. And so I would take Ayton over Reed. I was just repeating what you said. I would take Ayton over Reed.
So everybody in that range is basically what we're talking about for, mid-level ish or plus down money or whatever. And like I said, like you're getting Ayton at $14.5 million, presumably, because that would be. We're just gonna call out the most that anybody's gonna be able to get him for, because like I said, there's one cap space team in the entire league right now.
Can I throw a really sneaky destination in there for Ayton?
Okay.
How would you feel about San Antonio? Like, you go double big. Look, because of Wemby's ability to space, and then Ayton's your full-time backup big during the non-Wemby minutes, and you've got the table setters. You get like a Chris Paul reunion.
I think CP's pretty set on going to LA. Really? I think Chris Paul's going to be a Laker.
Ooh, okay. So let's have that conversation.
LA-ish. I think Chris Paul's going, like, he's made it pretty clear. I think he wants to end his career closer to his family.
Let's have that conversation then. Chris Paul, Laker. Where's your head at?
I mean, he would very clearly be the best backup point guard the Lakers have had since. Oh, the easy name is Russell Westbrook, but like the Russell Westbrook experience was so bad. Like in a vacuum, it would have been.
But he
Russ.
also wasn't a backup.
Yeah. Well, no, the second year he was, like Darvin's year he was.
Was he full time?
Like after
I feel
like
he was a backup for like some of the season.
Unless I'm tripping, I feel like it was like the 5th game of the year and on.
Let me see.
There was a point pretty early in Darvin's first year where they're like, "Nah, we're gonna make you."
You're right. Yeah. You're right. He only started 3 games in 2023.
Yeah, that's about right. Right. So in a vacuum, the answer would be Russ, but situation wise,
would it?
We can have that conversation. But like he would be very clearly the best backup. He'd be the best backup point guard since Rajon Rondo in 2020. Like very clearly. Yeah. And then even then, like you could go further than that potentially too. So like would he help the team? This is I guess where I could say in the vacuum, yeah, because you have someone that could come in and actually like run the show and set the table and set guys up for easy points.
Can I say, I don't think the current iteration of the roster, he'd be a very impactful player. You got to have a big that he can 2-man game with.
Well, that's why you go get Deandre Ayton.
If you get DeAndre Ayton and then you get Chris Paul, now we're talking something serious in LA.
Yeah.
Now we're talking something serious.
Do I personally like it or think that unless the pitch is like we're gonna get Ayton and I guess you can loop in the LeBron conversation here as well. We're gonna get Ayton and you get to play with your boy, you guys get to go out together or whatever. Shrug. But me personally, I don't really buy them doing it, and I don't really want them to do it. If we're talking completely from a Lakers perspective, if you are like going, hey, let's build this team out for Luka, and let's really, really, try to maximize the roster and build going forward and build a team that's sustainable to help the Lakers win championships going forward in the Luka era, then getting Chris Paul isn't necessarily the move, because I think with a Luka roster, that's why them getting a dude to Hero. I can't pronounce names, but getting him in the second round makes so much sense, because we're talking about guys to put next to Luka, athletic bigs, athletic wings, guards that can play defense that are also some semi-athletic. That's why if we're also, this is the decision the Lakers have to make for talking mid-level exception money, Nickeil Alexander-Walker for the Lakers or DeAndre Ayton for the Lakers. Nickeil Alexander-Walker last year was a really, really high-impact player that is a perfect fit for a Luka team. And getting Chris Paul just makes you older, and you're already unathletic as hell. Like the player the Lakers are drafted in the second round, like the 36th pick, is day one the best athlete on the team. Like there's just no athleticism whatsoever on it. Jared Vanderbilt is not a top 3 athlete. It's not very much functional athleticism at this point, and 2, he's been dealing with injuries. So I'm not really for it. I don't think they're going to do it either necessarily.
Okay. So you think Chris Paul wants to go to LA, but you don't think the Lakers want Chris Paul to come? Is that what you're saying?
My bad about the wording from earlier. I think Chris Paul
No,
wants
you're
to be
good.
in LA. I'm not all the way convinced that the Lakers want to do it unless, like I said, the pitch is, hey, Bron, you guys get to play together one last year. We're going to go get Ayton to maximize CP and Luka, and we'll build out the other pieces from there.
So here's what's interesting. If the Lakers don't want to do it and Chris Paul wants to be in LA, that other option would be the Clippers. You get a Chris Paul Clippers reunion. You get a Chris Paul James Harden reunion. But I feel like Paul and Harden, that didn't end well. So, what do you make of Chris Paul potentially as a Clipper?
I know I was just joking about, the Lakers being older, and the Clippers will also be getting incredibly old. But in the same token, again, very similar to the Lakers, Chris Paul will be the best backup point guard the Clippers have had since when? And I love the idea of Chris Paul and Zoo.
I do too. And also, I feel like one of the Clippers' big weaknesses this year was who's going to be the point guard when Harden sits?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Chris Dunn?
They have enough athleticism to surround Chris Paul with in certain lineups. If you
go Chris Paul, Norman Powell, Kawhi, Derek Jones Jr., Zoo.
Or even if you need more guard defense, you can go Chris Paul, Chris Dunn.
Yeah.
And call it a day.
If you get Derek Jones Jr. and Zoo, there goes your size and athleticism.
Yeah. So
and then you can go, dude, yeah. I actually think the Chris Paul Clippers fit makes a lot of sense.
It makes way more sense, I think, than the Lakers. The Lakers would be a cool story, in my opinion. The Clippers would make more basketball sense.
Yeah, and then so if you go Chris Paul and Zoo, you run those minutes together. You go Harden with the small ball lineup that they unlocked in the playoffs, where they go Batum at the 5.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense than the Lakers. Unless the Lakers go out and get a DeAndre Ayton type of big to run that 2-man game with Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So Clippers, by the way, news with them is James Harden agreed to a 2-year, $81.5 million contract. So
player option for the second year.
So he's locked in for at least another year. Where do you want to go next? You want to go? I mean, I will briefly mention what Indiana did. Pretty genius. They kind of anticipated the Halliburton thing and got their pick back for this upcoming season. So really smart, just really smart move on the margins there by Indiana. You want to have a brief Tom Thibodeau conversation? Knicks, what did the Knicks do about their coaching situation?
Yeah. So at first my reaction was, what the hell are they doing? to when they fired Tibbs. But then I was kind of being a hypocrite, so I walked it back and said, no, okay, it's fine. You're kind of being proactive and understanding to a certain extent that, hey, I think we honestly hit our max with Tom Thibodeau. Not sure, not sure if he could get us over the hump. He's the culture setter. He's the guy that got us here. We appreciate you, Tibbs, for your service, but we need to go get our guy that can get us over the hump now. All right, you guys here at a really tough time in the franchise. Greatly appreciate your service. Now, cool. Let's go get our guy. It's the comparison of hiring the culture setter in football, and then you see your Kyle Shanahan dangling in the weights, and you go hire him. That's kind of the NFL comparison. So I kind of flipped it. It was on board. Then this entire process has happened. I'm like, no, what are we doing? You fired Tom Thibodeau, and then in the process of firing Tibbs, you've made yourself look like a complete joke to the rest of the league by basically calling up everybody and said, hey, we just fired our head coach. Can we have yours? Like, what? No. And, I mean, some of the names they have now, I guess, are kind of fine. Like, it's Taylor Jenkins, Mike Brown, and Micah Nori, who's the T-Wolves assistant, I think.
Yeah. I also heard, I don't know how much backing there is to this, but buzz about Dawn Staley, potentially.
Yeah, heard about that too.
Is she South Carolina, I believe?
South Carolina.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, cool, and, you know, the names are fine, but you just made yourself look like a complete joke of a franchise at this point. And, by the way, Knicks, and not sure if you knew this or not, but free agency starts in a week. You do not have a head coach. The draft just happened. You do not have a head coach. I don't think they made any selections, but still, like, the whole point is, this is why I think coaching in the NBA sucks sometimes, especially if you don't have a job already or depending on the situation. How can you expect me and hold me accountable in the NBA? This is not high school basketball where you have no control over your roster. This is the NBA. How do you expect me and want to hold me accountable to get these guys to win and do X, Y, Z when I have absolutely no input on this roster, because I'm not going to have the job in time to have any freaking input on the roster? It makes no sense. So yeah, just a complete botch of a situation, a really bad way to follow up Eastern, the best season in 2+ decades. They were better off bringing Tibbs back and saying, no, we'll run this back, and then, oh no, Boston's healthy again, so let's say they get bounced in the second round next year. Oh no, Boston's about to get healthy. Indiana's about to get back healthy. Now let's fire Tibbs and let's have a targeted guy, not just like aimlessly throwing our hands up and saying, oh man, I hope we get Jason Kidd. Like, why the F would Dallas say yes to that? So, I don't know. Their process has really just bothered the shit out of me, as you can tell.
What makes it so tough is kind of like what you hinted at. The East is about to be the most wide open it's literally ever been. Yeah. Indiana and Boston are both going to be out of the mix.
Two last Eastern Conference champs.
What'd you say?
I was saying the two last Eastern Conference champs.
Yeah, the two last Eastern Conference champs are out. So now you got like the Knicks. You've got the Cavs, who are going to be looking really freaking good compared to the rest of the competition. And also the team that's kind of potentially going to get back in the mix is Philly. And I do kind of want to have a brief Philly conversation. And obviously this all completely hinges on whether or not Joel Embiid exists as a superstar level player. If Joel Embiid is back to like 2023, 2024 form, Philly looks pretty terrifying. They just drafted VJ Edgecombe. That's one of the guys I know a little bit about. And everything to me kind of points to this guy just being an amazing fit. You get Drummond back on his player option. You get Kelly Oubre back on his player option. You've got Jared McCain coming back from injury. You've still got Maxey. You've still got Paul George. We're talking about a supremely talented Philly roster that is kind of shaping up, and it really just hinges on if Joel Embiid is going to be healthy and if he's going to be in prime form. Because if so, are they not just like very clearly a top 2 team in the East alongside Cleveland?
Yeah, and I think the conversation with Philly is particularly interesting. I'm trying to pull up a stat that I saw about Embiid. And I get any level of skepticism regarding Philly completely justified, trust me, specifically with Embiid and his health. How how little you can trust Embiid's health. But this season, if we're looking at, the NBA leaderboard, 24-25 leaderboard of win, and this is sometimes stats like this are a little misguided, take it with a grain of salt. But if we're just going off of wins above replacement missed, the gap between 1 and 2 is 1.7 wins above replacement missed or whatever. Number 2 is Victor Wembanyama. I mean, duh, you would think the Spurs looked pretty bad without Wemby. Number 2, close behind him, the rivalry is still alive, is Chet in the 50 games or whatever he missed. He missed 50 games.
Yeah.
Number 1 is Joel Embiid. 5.148 wins above replacement missed. And like I said, number 2 is Wemby. So I do think that because of how much, it's almost like, when you go so long without seeing that thing, you almost forget what happens when that thing's on the floor. Joel Embiid's impact on the entire organization of Philly when he is there. Joel Embiid's a top 5 player when he's healthy.
That might even be underselling it, dude. His impact is insane on that team.
You took that away from that team that also had Paul George had the worst year of his career since breakout of stardom, at least for sure. You're the rookie of the year because he was going to win it. The rookie of the year blows his knee out in December, and just all the cluster F that was Philly last season. Joel Embiid doesn't need to be that, but let's say Joel Embiid's a top 20 player next year, not the top 5 player based on impact that he has been every year he's been healthy for the past 7 years. No, be a top 20 player, and Philly's the second or third best team in the East with average health. This is the third best team in the East at worst, probably.
It's so easy to forget that they were better than the Celtics in that 2023-24 season for the first 35 games. I think they were 29-6 with Embiid or something crazy, and he went on a month straight where he had 30 and 10 in every single game.
Yeah.
Just an absurd talent on both ends of the floor, and Philly's just an absurdly good team every time he's there.
You're better off not ranking him. Not to cut you off, but the Rangers.
And can I say, is it safe to say that this is the best roster Joel Embiid's ever played for, including his impact? Because 2019 Sixers are probably the better roster outside of Embiid, but that version of Embiid wasn't what Embiid is now.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're just taking 19 Embiid and putting him on this roster, they're probably worse than they were in 19. But with the current, more developed Embiid as an offensive player, I do think this has the potential. This should be the best Sixers roster, depending on what Embiid looks like.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the only statement I was going to make about the player rankings part, because I know you're going to be doing your player rankings at some point probably. I'm doing my preseason power ranking series, and with that comes grading each individual player. And I have no clue what to do for Philly because of Embiid. And I only bring that up because the Ringer did their top 100 players ranking, which I think almost all the rankings suck in terms of different sites. I think there's probably one of the better ones, but they were better off not ranking Embiid because you penalize Embiid for the season he had due to his injuries, but Zion's still in the top 40, but Embiid's 85th or something stupid. And when we know damn well Embiid is still so I don't know, the rankings can kind of be tough, but you're better off just not ranking him.
Yeah, for my top 25, he's not a factor. It's I do this thing every year where I'm you had to have given me a healthy sample of what you looked like as a player.
Yeah.
Even if it's 30 games, show me 30 games, Chet before the playoffs. I would have felt good ranking him off of the 30 regular season games he played. Joel Embiid's not going to be ranked on my top
50 games. I feel
Joel Embiid's not going to be in my rankings. It's just I did the same thing with Kawhi for years. It's healthy Kawhi is probably 6th or 7th, but we're seeing it for however many games, and then he's not playing in the playoffs. How do I rank that?
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, same thing this year. He's not going to be ranked. There were a few Zion years where he wasn't ranked, and he probably would have been top 15 healthy. We can't, at a certain point, you can't assume, I know he's a top 10 player. Well, no, you don't know that because the last version we saw of him wasn't that. But yeah, I'm operating under the assumption, like when I talk about this Sixers team, I'm operating under the assumption that Joel Embiid is fully healthy and at least like 80% of his peak form. And the Sixers, to me, that would make the Sixers the second best team in the East, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Behind Cleveland.
Cleveland. Third, I'm assuming, pending, like, they get their coach, would be New York for you?
The Knicks, yeah. I mean, who else is even in that mix?
Orlando, Desmond Bane. And
Orlando,
then
and we can have that conversation. Real quickly, before we move on to the rest of the East, I want to just, like, quickly get the Cleveland thing out of the way. They paid Sam Merrill. I don't know what's happening with the Ty Jerome thing, because isn't he eligible for a deal?
I think they're preparing to lose Ty Jerome.
That makes total sense, and that's probably why you go and get Lonzo Ball.
Yep.
Who, the ideal version of Lonzo, is so perfect for this roster, but I do think like the version we saw of him last year is not even a fraction of the point of attack defender he was before the injuries. So that part of it is interesting because Okoro was probably their best point of attack defender. So you lose that.
Who else would be in the discussion?
Nobody.
I was about to say, like, we said
Dean
probably,
Wade?
like, wait.
Like, you know,
Let me find out Donovan Mitchell is locking up Steph Curry out here.
Okoro was their best point of attack defender for sure. And now Lonzo's going to have to try and fill that role. I don't know if he can, but I think the kind of vision with that is now you have your backup point guard if you lose Ty Jerome. You get someone who's like an elite transition player, and you're adding him to one of the most efficient transition offenses in NBA history. So that's awesome. The other thing though is I've had this feeling with Cleveland where it feels like they're always having to choose offense or defense with their lineups, and the ideal version of Lonzo Ball bridges that gap for you, where it's not like, okay, we have to go offense or we have to go defense. It's we have a guy who can do both. And that's kind of the vision. I don't know if he'll be that, but like, yeah, 2022 Lonzo on this team just raises their ceiling that much more. So yeah, I think Cleveland still has room for internal development. Like Darius Garland still has room for development. Evan Mobley took a leap this year. Who's to say he won't take another one? Yeah, I really like Cleveland, and I do think they're a very clear favorite with Indiana and Boston kind of out of the mix.
I think another underrated part about the Darius Garland, about the another
Lonzo.
underrated part about the Lonzo signing is that Darius Garland's gonna be out for the next 4 to 5 months, which this was announced 3 weeks ago. So Darius Garland being out, let's say 5 months, that puts you at November, basically, like late November, we'll just call it. So you probably just found your starting point guard for the first month of the season.
Yeah.
That's all. Alonzo is also, I think, recovering from an injury. So that's the really like the that's the other unfortunate part about the Cavs. Like you said, it's them having to choose between offense and defense. It's also like, dog, we have to choose between. I mean, not choosing, but we can never have our team fully healthy.
And what's so interesting about it is it almost feels like, because there's obviously a lot of luck involved in a championship. Like your team needs to be healthy, you need to get the right path. There's so much luck involved in winning a championship. And I almost wonder if they're gambling on the luck and being like, maybe everything aligns for us. We get everyone fully healthy in April. And that's kind of just like their pathway. Because Garland especially, and Lonzo, those two especially, are just always having these nagging injuries.
Yeah, Lonzo, I do remember now, had a wrist injury that happened late February. He has not played since. So, and with Garland, they expect him to be removed from all basketball activities until the start of training camp, and he's expecting to miss the beginning of the regular season. So
Got it. And Lonzo's one of those just super high IQ players where even if there are physical limitations from the injuries or whatever, like good things seem to happen every time he's on the court. And that's really the main thing. So when you get on a 64-win team or whatever, and it's like now we have this guy who's just always going to be in the right spot at the right time on both ends and just make the right play every time. Even if he is limited in other ways, that's just a really good ceiling raiser. And I think I like that fit a lot.
yeah, you lose some of the shot creation of Ty Jerome, but I think you gain a lot of the other stuff that we've already kind of talked about.
To be fair, Ty Jerome's shot creation did not exist against Indiana, which
no
really made my video age poorly. I made a Ty Jerome video after the first round where I basically like called him an all-star in hiding, and then he goes out and has that Indiana series, and that kind of backfired on me. But I still think Ty Jerome's a really good player. But yeah, you can definitely see some of the limitations that come with not having any physical advantages. Especially when Garland's hurt and you're relying on Ty Jerome. You're like, we need you to step up, and then he just did not have that capability. So yeah, I do think like this is a very different conversation if he goes into that Indiana series and just like starts performing like an all-star.
Yeah.
Then it's like, ooh, can we really afford to lose that? But I think they saw the limitations. They saw the writing on the wall with the contract coming up, and we're like, we have to let him walk. Let's find a replacement. Let's go to Orlando, though. You brought up the Desmond Bane thing. We haven't talked about the Desmond Bane trade at all. They also drafted Jace Richardson, which, like I said, I don't know much about the draft, but from what I've heard, that was a steal at number 25.
I think it was more so a great fit. I'm not going to classify whether or not it was a steal. I think it was a fantastic fit, though.
Got it. Let's talk about Desmond Bane, though. What were your initial thoughts on the trade?
So when it first happened, my athletic director texted me like, man, I think he might have just set the trade market. That's a crazy price for Desmond Bane. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think it set the market at all. And the Kevin Durant trade definitely proved that to be true. But anywho, I think honestly Orlando was just A, that desperate, and B, Orlando sent out absolutely nothing in terms of valuable contracts. They sent out Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and they sent out Cole Anthony. Okay, pack your bags. I will show you the door. I will take you to the airport myself. And Desmond Bane provides some, God forbid, like just much needed guard creation. And maybe also like some of that is the fact that they didn't have Jalen Suggs for like 3/4 of the season, it felt like last year, including the playoffs. But the 3-point shooting, the secondary playmaking from a guard that he can provide, I think they have enough collective playmaking now with getting Suggs back healthy. I think Bane's fine. Paulo, Franz are obviously these jumbo playmakers and just advantage creators in general for them. I love the fit. I love Desmond Bane in Orlando. They try to like put a stopgap in for the shooting by going to get KCP, and it is over flooded, and the little band-aid to stop the floodgates did not work. They really actually addressed the shooting need. Sure, they paid a hefty price. Good on Memphis for kind of forcing him to overpay to get Desmond Bane in terms of draft compensation. Give you a 4 first sounds like a lot, but honestly, I think Orlando's trying to capitalize on a more wide open Eastern Conference this year. Like, who's to say they can't have another team's actually kind of been really just gone to hell in terms of injuries. And the other team I want to mention too, golly, the East can't stay healthy. The Knicks are the only team that's kind of had decent injury fortune out of everybody in my top 5.
And even they've had the Mitchell Robinson stuff.
Yeah.
On and off.
The Cavs have had their whole starting 5 at one point, like each player, the whole team for Philly and for Orlando. And then one of my other teams also has just been super banged up recently. But I love the fit. I think D-Bane's going to come in and make Franz and Paulo's life a whole lot easier. And they didn't lose any real defensive value, I don't think. They're going to be just fine.
Yeah, the 3-point shooting is the big thing, obviously. They, of their top 10 in minutes played, only one guy shot above 35% from 3 last year.
That's like,
as a team, they shot 31.8%,
which is worse than shooter.
It was, I want to say, it might have been Caleb Houston. Might have been Caleb Houston. It was Corey Joseph was up there. It could have been either Caleb Houston or Corey Joseph, I believe.
Caleb Houston one low key sounds right.
I think it was one or the other, but it wasn't like a volume starter or anything. It was like a very like niche bench player. Bane as a career 41% from 3 on over 6 attempts a game.
Sheesh.
So immediately just huge boost there. You get one of the best shooters on the planet. The bigger thing for me is the transition aspect of Bane. So Bane's been a top 10 transition scorer in each of the last 3 seasons in terms of volume. So we're talking about a guy who's looking to get out and run, hunting for transition threes. He's a really good transition driver. And also, Franz and Paolo are both devastating downhill athletes. Like when those guys get downhill, they're really, really effective. And one of my big takeaways when I made my Paolo video a few months ago was, why the heck don't the Magic make that a point of emphasis to play in transition? Because Paolo and Franz cannot be stopped when they go downhill. And Orlando was 27th in transition scoring last season. Then Jamal Mosley comes out in an interview and says a point of emphasis for them moving forward is going to be to play with more pace. So to me, this Desmond Bane move marks the final point, like a huge culture shift, where we're going to see Bane, Paolo, Franz, all these other guys they get, and this is going to become a fast-paced team. Please, I really need to see this Orlando offense play with pace. I think it would make a world of difference for them. We've already talked about the defense their floor the floor their defense provides. Sorry. They were the number 2 defense in last regular season. With all of those injuries, they were a top 5 defense 2 years ago when they made the playoffs. I think this is a team with serious 52, 53 win potential that's maybe getting a bit overlooked right now.
Yeah, Orlando's looking really, really good heading into next year. I think this is the year for them potentially, and I think it's almost got to be the year they were going to make a push, because they're also going to run into some pretty hefty financial decisions here pretty soon.
Speaking of financial decisions, you want to talk about Boston and what they've kind of done?
Sure. We can start with the Anthony Simons trade. They traded Drew Holiday again. Drew Holiday, is getting traded again to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons, and I think they got to pick back like a second or something.
Yeah, they did.
Just thoughts on the Anthony Simons fit in general, and then you can also lean that into the Kristaps trade.
Yeah, I don't really know how huge of a fan I am of specifically Anthony Simons as a basketball fit with the Celtics. The Tatum injury just kind of throws off everything in my head for Boston, because it's like, what actually is their goal this season? Anthony Simons, just like the quick rundown on him as a player, just like, again, one of the best shooters on the planet, a really good perimeter scorer, but has a lot of limitations as an inside the arc scorer. Like as an isolationist, he's not the type of guy that's going to create a ton of pressure on the rim. And then also just obviously a very limited defender. So I think Simons is the type of guy who can go into this Boston 5-out system. He's going to have a lot of touches without Tatum. Can be like a 20 to 22 point per game scorer if he's a starter, and all that good stuff. I don't think this is like a championship roster move though. And I guess like what do you think the goal with this trade was? Very specifically just to get off Holiday's contract and just clear that space?
I think so. And I think, just to get some more short-term upside for this season. Because I do agree in this. I don't necessarily take them seriously from the standpoint of like long-term we're invested in Anthony Simons. I take this as a look. We are trying not to bottom out, and we love you, Drew, but I think what we need right now is, for potentially for this season, a little bit more offense, a little more of a scoring punch. And Anthony Simons, I think this is either going to really, really work, or this is going to look hot. This is going to look awful, and he's probably flipped again at the deadline. Because there's parts of Anthony Simons' game that I think shows you that it could translate to Boston. Like you said, dangerous three-point shooter, whether it's off the catch, off a pick and roll, in isolation, off a dribble handoff stuff. Like you said, he's going to get increased touches, or not even increased touches. He's going to get his touches in the offense, especially with no Tatum, and them just needing more self-creation in general.
Yeah, I want to jump in with 2 points. One that really scares me is this makes the Celtics more three-point volatile than they already were. Last season, 53% of Simons' shot attempts came from three.
Yeah.
And it's like, so now you're taking a team that we saw it in the Knicks series. That was their downfall, like reliance on the three ball. Sometimes you get hot, sometimes you don't. You end up in a series against New York where you start the series cold, you go down, and it's like maybe you were the better team, but the volatility can make you the worst team for 4 or 5 game stretches very easily. We saw it also in Miami 2023. They went down 3-0 because they had cold shooting and Miami had hot shooting. It's like you're taking a gamble. Now you've increased that even more. And also, I know they're not the same players. They're obviously very different physically and all that. But like Anthony Simons has basically the exact same set of strengths and weaknesses that Peyton Pritchard has. So it's a little bit weird to me to try and pair those guys. The basketball fit side of things is a bit weird to me, but I do agree with you that there's a world where like that many shooters just still makes you one of the best teams in the East. And then what's the timeline on Tatum? Like, is there a chance where he's back for the playoffs?
I mean, that puts you at about a year. So, I mean, I guess, but shrug. Like, if you're the 7 seed, are you playing Tatum in round 1?
I don't know.
Or like it's a play-in game or whatever, 7-8 play-in. Are we playing Tatum? I don't think you play Tatum in a 7-8 play-in game.
I wouldn't risk it. So yeah, it is a bit weird to me. It is a bit weird to me, but like we said, like they between the Drew Holiday trade and the Porzingis trade, they've saved like $300 million
in luxury tax. Yeah. Now the parts that like just concern the hell out of me is, again, one, the fact that he is one of the 5 worst pound for pound defensive players in the league, probably. The lack of rim pressure or just rim finishing in general that we kind of already touched on. He's a fun shot maker, but he's just very clearly peaked as a player. I thought if he was ever going to take a leap as a player, it would have been in 2024. Like a further leap up progression wise. I feel like he is somewhat, like, to a certain extent, he's the same player he is now as he was at the end of 2023. Like that's Dame's fair. Last year in Portland, he's the exact same player.
Yeah, that's actually really fair. And all of the statistical indicators would actually maybe even favor the 2023 version.
Yeah. Not a great playmaker or advantage creator. Like there's a lot of ways where this could look really bad, but to your point, they could be even more 3-point volatile, and on some nights it look like still an elite, best offense in elite.
Because he's a ridiculously good shooter. Like I don't want to like overlook that point specifically. He takes ridiculously difficult threes and makes ridiculously difficult threes, whether that's off the dribble, off the catch, from extended range, off of weird momentum. In the last 4 seasons, he's made 38% of his threes on 8.5 attempts a game.
Sheesh.
But like we both said, the problem is that's basically 90% of what you're getting with Anthony Simons is that long range shot making, and that's what makes him so volatile. Like even if you just look at his last 5 games of the season, 8 for 24 against Memphis, 6 for 13 against Boston, 2 for 12 against Cleveland, 8 for 17 against Sacramento, and then 5 for 20 against New York. So it's like all over the place. It's really like his performance is dictated by whether or not the 3 ball is falling. And that plays into the Boston problem, where their performance at times is very reliant on are the 3-point shots falling or
not. Kristaps trade. It's a 3-team trade. The Hawks, definitely want to touch on the Hawks. One of the winners of the early offseason, in my opinion. The Hawks get Kristaps in the 2nd-round pick. The Nets receive Terrence Mann and the 22nd overall pick, which wound up to be Drake Powell from North Carolina. Probably my favorite pick the Nets have made. And the Celtics receive Georges Niang and a 2nd-round pick. This is so clearly just a cap shed. Like there's honestly nothing to analyze about this for Boston. This is
Boston is clearly
shed.
Let's get rid of Porzingis' contract. Atlanta side of things is interesting because they bought low on a player who's had a high ceiling for many years. So I actually do think Porzingis this season specifically wasn't a very good player. Like, is that a hot take? Like, I don't want to. That sounds a little bit harsh, but between the inconsistencies in offense and defense, the volatility in his performance, the illness that bothered him for pretty much the entire season, I do think like this version of Porzingis is the worst version of Porzingis we've seen in quite a while. But
Since what, like 19 Dallas?
it's got to be
Is that the right year?
Yeah, no, I think you're no, I would say I'd even go back to probably the Knicks. Like maybe his rookie season. I don't know. Like this was a very weird year for Porzingis. But my thing is you didn't really have to get rid of anything at all to get him. And the version of Porzingis that we saw in 2023 and in 2024 would be the best teammate Trae Young's ever had.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I thought about that for so long.
But it's like crazy. It is crazy because Trae Young's going into year 8 now, right?
Damn, we're old.
7. No, 8. Yeah, it's year 8. Year 8. Yeah, he's finished 7. Wow.
Dang, Unc.
Yeah, that is crazy. That's really crazy. But it's also crazy to think we're in year 8 and we're talking about Porzingis as the best teammate he's ever had. So that's the big thing for me. Like Atlanta was already a sneaky decent team when they had Jalen Johnson. Now you've got potentially an all-star caliber big. Potentially. I use that word very heavily. Atlanta could be really good. They could be really good.
I've like I said earlier, I love what Atlanta's done already. Trae, they have to figure out what they want to do extension-wise for him. But everything they've done this summer has so heavily indicated on, no, we are like trying to build around Trae. If you were to build a roster, like if you told me, hey, start from scratch, let's build a roster around Trae Young, I think the archetype of players that the Hawks have kind of assembled around him, whether you date back to last season, I think this is kind of what the roster will look like. Not exactly these players, but similar archetypes. Like I think Kristaps, Onyeka Okongwu, they could get really freaky. Not even freaky necessarily, but they could go legit double big lineups with both Onyeka Okongwu and Kristaps Porzingis. Okongwu finally starting to break out of the Clint Capella shadow. He's still only 25 years old. He's potentially in due for an extension. You have Zachary Reese-Shea. You have Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels.
Jalen
Johnson's so good. Just give us a full year.
Jalen Johnson season, please.
And then you get Asa Newell, who's a different kind of big than both Kristaps and Onyeka Okongwu. And then really the fun part and what kind of opens is retooling, because this was just a massive retool. I'm not even going to call it a rebuild for the Hawks. A huge retool for the Hawks that's potentially going to be done by the end of not this upcoming season, but next season, I think. The draft night trade of them getting the 2026 best swap of Milwaukee and New Orleans. And by doing that, by the way, anytime you trade down, you can trade down and still get the guy you want and get extra compensation. Win-win. You're going to take that guy anyway. You won. They trade down from 13 to 23 to get the guy they were linked to in the lottery, get better draft value for Asa Newell. But there is, I would actually say, and maybe this is harsh, let me know, Tyler. I think there is at least a 50-50 shot that pick they get next year is a lottery pick. You're telling me between Milwaukee's situation and New Orleans, there's not a hell of a good chance that one of those two teams are a lottery team. New Orleans in the West and Milwaukee with their situation?
I don't think Milwaukee is even... I don't think Giannis can possibly have a lottery team. But I think the gamble is New Orleans. Like, I think potentially New Orleans could be a lottery team again. Actually, like, more than likely will be, I would say. Yeah, it's interesting. That's really... I would say, like, looking at the Hawks' current roster, I agree with you that they've put all of the ideal archetypes around Trae. Like, you've got your stretch big now with Porzingis. You've got your rim protector. You've got the athletic rim running, rebounding big with Okongwu.
That's also learning how to step out.
You've got an athletic forward in Jalen Johnson who can do like basically everything on the court, except he's not like a high level shooter. You've got one of the best perimeter defenders of the decade at the 2 next to Trae Young. You've got an elite play finisher rookie who just like projects to be this world class off ball scorer. The one thing that they're severely missing that was also one of their biggest problems last year is who the heck runs the offense when Trae Young sits?
Yeah.
Like, they don't have that. And I really think they're just a really good backup point guard away from being a dangerous playoff team.
And they're heavily linked. They have their mid-level exception. They're heavily linked to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is going to be another really, really good fit here. Another guy that you can just put next to Trey. Oh, my God. You have Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels on the same team.
They've got a really good Trey build. But, they need to figure out what are we going to do when Trey sits.
Yeah.
Or if he misses some games. And because when the non-Trey minutes are going to be insane defensively. So it's like, can we get just a good enough point guard to keep our offense afloat during those non-Trey minutes? And then also, is there somebody we can get that can also play with Trey during those minutes? I like what Atlanta's doing, though. Like, just from a starting point, I don't think they're done making moves. But where they're at right now, like, this is shaping out to be a pretty good run of moves for the Hawks.
Couple guys that they can maybe go after.
Wait, don't they still have Karis LeVert?
Oh, yeah, they want to bring Karis LeVert back. I forgot about that.
That's their backup. Yeah, I totally blanked on the fact that they still had Karis LeVert.
Yeah, they want to bring Karis LeVert back.
So that's the guy. And also, to my point, so when Trae Young was off the floor and LeVert was off the floor this season, they had a 107 offensive rating. Mm-hmm. When LeVert was on the floor without Trae, 118. Mm-hmm. And LeVert actually is like a very good bench creator. So my concerns are kind of answered. Like, Atlanta's going to be a good team, I think, just a legitimately good team.
If they're somehow able to keep LeVert and still use their mid-level to go get Nah, because now, like, rotation-wise, you could start Onyeka and Kristaps together. You could go one or the other. You could go Kristaps and bring Onyeka off.
I probably would bring a Kongwu off the bench, but I'd sprinkle in some double big minutes for sure. I think my starting five would be probably just Trey, Dyson, Risa Shea, Johnson, Porzingis.
And then your bench group is, like, your top three is LeVert, Nah, and Okongwu.
That's a good team. That's a legitimately good team. Like, that's not a contender, but it's a good team.
Who knows if Kobe Buffkin finally figures it out and has a year 3 breakout. Yeah. I really liked Kobe Buffkin when he was coming out of Michigan.
I like his game. Yeah, I like his game.
Like, Quinn Snyder's a really good coach. And then, like I said, there's a high probability that you get a lottery pick next year in a loaded draft.
Has Quinn Snyder ever coached a stretch big? Like, I'm thinking about it. It was like Gobert and then Capella.
No, I don't think so.
Like, Snyder's one of the most creative offensive coaches in terms of player positioning and all that stuff. And he's always had a very limited offensive big. So
Atlanta had a very limited offense in terms of pieces to play with in general.
Yeah.
Easily the most talented offense he's ever had.
Ooh, that 2021 Jazz team was really freaking good offensively.
In terms of pieces he has to play with, like from a coach's standpoint?
Dude, Conley, Mitchell, Clarkson, Ingles, Bojan scoring 20 a game. Royce O'Neal. Nah, that team got it. No, that team got it. 2021
Risa Shea's play finishing. Kristaps floor spacing, the stuff you could do with Kongwu as a screener or as a floor alignment shifter. Jalen Johnson coming back.
Jazz got it. You must not remember 2021 Joe Ingles.
I'm going to make a Twitter poll Mars style. By the way, I think you might have even said this. Anytime Mars posts a poll on Twitter is because he had a conversation.
Yeah. He posts the most diabolical polls I've ever seen.
2019 James Harden or 2013 Steve Nash. That's going to be the next poll Mars posts.
Okay. Anything else you want to add on the Hawks?
No. Love the build.
I want to rattle off a couple other moves that are kind of big. And if you want to stop and talk about any of these, let me know. Jordan Poole to the Pelicans.
Okay, cool.
Shout out Jordan Poole. He had a good season. Pelican. I do like his fit with Zion. And Trey Murphy, but
I hate it because they went to go get Jeremiah Fears.
Okay. They also got Sadiq Bey in that trade. They got rid of McCollum. I will say the big thing, we talked about this all season. Get off McCollum's contract, please. And they finally did that. So shout out to the Pelicans. What else we got? We could talk about Cooper Flagg getting drafted by them. I mean, that was kind of obvious, so there's not much to say there. But I guess my point is Dallas is probably a heavy hitting contender. That's like a sleeping giant. And people are never going to give them credit because of the way things went down. But the Mavs have a really good team.
Mavs do have a really good team. If we're sticking on the Mavs really quickly, they do extend Kyrie. Kyrie gets a 3-year deal.
Yep.
I forget the exact dollar amount. But Kyrie does sign an extension. It just keeps the window open. They kind of had to a certain extent. There's just no way you justify trading Luka and then turning around, not paying Kyrie, and trying to convince the fan base you were contending.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, I do think Dallas is going to be really good. Raptors fire Masai. That was kind of like pretty, I don't know if it was unexpected, but just kind of out of the blue. It was so out of nowhere. I got the notification. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was like a thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the Raptors at all?
I think it was just more shocking because of the time, but for being honest, I feel like I've said this before. He's kind of been mid pretty much since 21. He's been mid for like the past 3 or 4 years. I feel like I think he completely botched their asset management with Siakam and OG and some of those guys. Speaking of asset management, I think Danny Ainge has sneaky also been kind of mid, or the Jazz have just botched their asset management. Talking about another quick trade that we don't have to dive too much into. Colin Sexton going for Yusuf Nurkic. No, by the way, Colin Sexton and a second for Yusuf Nurkic. When legit a year ago, Colin Sexton probably goes for a first-round pick. You pay Lauri Markkanen regresses, primarily just efficiency-wise, but could have gotten 3+ first-round picks for Lauri Markkanen a year and a half ago.
Right.
Just botching asset management for Masai, going back to him, I think he's been pretty mid. So,
And the Raptors are one of the few teams I look at, and I don't know what the direction is.
I hate their build. Talk about the Hawks build. I love it. I hate their build.
I feel the same way. And it's not even like I dislike anyone individually. It's just like the collection of pieces. Like, I think Brandon Ingram's a really good player. I really like his game. I don't know what the goal with bringing in Brandon Ingram is. I don't know if they're still trying to make Scotty Barnes a first option. I don't know what exactly they're doing. But yeah, I think Toronto's still a few moves away from really having a direction. And so maybe bringing in someone new is like the starting point. You already brought up Naz Reid, signing a 5-year, $125 million contract. What do you feel about, like, is that an overpay, an underpay? Like, how do you feel about that deal?
The number sounds like a lot when you first say it out loud. Like, I remember looking at that and being like, huh, okay, that sounds like a lot. But AAV-wise, it's only $25 million, and this year he's only going to be lined up to make 21.3 or something like that. So, in reality, like, it's not the biggest of deal. They have a lot of money tied up to their front court.
Right,
they also paid
Randall.
Julius.
Randall signs a 3-year, $100 million.
Yeah.
Gobert still under contract. So yeah, they are putting a
2
lot
more
of money
years
in that front court. You're not wrong, but I do think like those 3 guys have shown that they can all play together, and they're a supremely talented front court on offense and defense. So why overthink it past that point?
I do have one question though. Julius, you're paying 30.8 this year. Estimated 30.8. Nas estimated 21.5. Rudy's getting paid 35 this year, 36.5 next year, and a $38 million player option going into his age 36 season. Do you think that this is approach-wise the right thing for Minnesota to do? Like, hey, look, no, let's keep giving this group cracks at it, or do you think they should have looked into let's maybe experiment with different pairings?
I don't know. Like, maybe they're just thinking like they're just another Anthony Edwards leap away from keep on reaching the, like, every time Anthony Edwards takes a leap, we get that much closer, and then we finally break through. And maybe that's the line of thinking. Maybe they're expecting more development from Jaden and Nas, because like you do look at this team and you're like, okay, if a few of these guys on the margins just took like a slight leap, they probably would be contender level good. Like back-to-back conference finals appearances were not flukes. And they do still feel pretty far away. Like in both conference finals, they just don't put up. I will say they put up more of a fight against Dallas, but like they didn't at no point in either series did they really feel like they had the upper hand.
Yeah.
So that suggests that they're still a decent bit away. But yeah, maybe they're gonna look for some like maybe they're not sticking with this front court and they're just getting these guys in the books and then looking to field them out. What do you think? What do you think? Like, where do you think Minnesota should go from here? Because maybe it's just there's nothing else on the table, so stick with what has proven to work to this point.
Yeah. And there is some value to that. I think the biggest thing, I think Julius, you almost had to bring back. I think Julius proved throughout the playoffs or whatever that, like, hey, look, this is the right fit. You know, I can be a playoff player, and I think the contract he got is fair. I just like it. Maybe this is to your point, I guess, down the road they do invest in trading one of these guys. But 27, 28, paying the trio of your front court, a combined, I mean, quick math at this late of night is diabolical, but like $94 million. No, wait, $98 million. $98 million between Julius, Nas, and Rudy. Doesn't 36-year-old Rudy, 34-year-old Julius Randle just doesn't sit right with me personally. Now, to your point, like, hey, look, maybe it's Ant continues to make progressions. He's still not 25 yet. They're very clearly invested a lot in some of their younger guys, like Rob Dillingham. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity next season now with them essentially not being able to retain Nah whatsoever. So we'll see. We'll see, I guess. I'll give Minnesota – they've earned some benefit of the doubt with how they've kind of done some things here recently. I'll say that.
Got you. Yeah, I kind of agree. Three more things. I got one like quick one and then two heavier hitters.
Okay.
Jonathan Kaminga. What are your thoughts on that situation? Do you have any destinations in mind, or do you think that he's just going to be kind of a dump? Like,
I hope I'm not making this up. I think there was something I read or heard that somewhat attached into Miami as a sign and trade option. And Miami's always going to get attached in these kind of situations, but I low-key like this one. I feel like Miami's a situation where there aren't, from at least me and us, I'm going to attach you because I feel like you would also put them in this boat. They are not crazy expectations on Miami to go compete and play under pressure or whatever. Some of the developmental flaws, and it sucks that we're saying this for a guy that's about to be a second contract player and we have to talk ourselves into paying $25+ million. But some of the developmental flaws that we didn't get to like weed all the way out in Golden State, you could go weed those out this year in Miami and gain the chemistry with Tyler and Bam. And I think he would add to their defensive versatility, I think. And honestly, if there was a situation where you could be a jumbo scorer that's averaging 20 plus points a game and having two-way impact on a good team eventually, I think Miami's the place that can make sense with Spo and their developmental process. I legitimately do like that situation for Kaminga.
What about like Denver? Playing off of Jokic and just leaning into the athleticism.
Denver could also be fun.
Because I do think
if you're Denver, do you talk out of it though? Like he couldn't work in Golden State. We think he's going to work here?
Yeah, that's what's tough.
Well, that's also Miami too, I guess. But Golden State's a lot closer to contending.
In either Golden State or Miami, he'd have more of a decision-making load and he'd be asked to handle the ball more. And I do think Kaminga's biggest flaw as a player is the offensive decision-making. It's the processing. It's the passing. Like, the scoring talent is very clearly there. Every time he plays big minutes for Golden State, it's obvious how good of a scorer he is. In that Minnesota series, it was obvious how good of a scorer he is. The mid-range game with the athleticism and the length, just a really, really good scorer. It's everything else kind of falling into place, or out of place, I should say. So maybe I just think the best situation is either one where he can really grow as a decision maker, which would kind of be like a rebuild, or B, where he's just only asked to lean into the scoring and like play off of other guys who are going to carry that decision-making load. Another thing I've kind of seen floated around there is Sacramento potential. Like if Sacramento decides to blow it up.
If they try to blow it up. Okay.
If they decide to blow it up, and it's like Golden State could probably find a lot of utilization for like Sabonis or DeRozan or Levine, like any of those guys. So if that's the direction, if you're still going to go like, okay, we don't care if we get older. We have Steph, we have Jimmy, we have Draymond. One last dance. Let's get one of those older stars. Or even Malik Monk, because Malik Monk, I think, is like a really, really good player who's kind of being, he was in like De'Aaron Fox's shadow for a little bit, then has this run as the point guard where he looks really, really good, then gets hurt, and that kind of, the whole Sacramento thing falls to just complete garbage after that. I do think Sacramento would be maybe what makes most sense for Golden State.
For a sign and trade destination.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And if I'm Sacramento, I'm bloodthirsty to get off of one of DeRozan or Zach personally.
Or does Brooklyn
even though we just traded.
Like, would Brooklyn maybe be willing to do a Cam Johnson thing? Like, I don't know.
You know why Brooklyn actually low-key makes sense? Because Brooklyn just drafted 5 effing point guards. So, Kaminga, we have enough playmaking now to Cam Thomas, they're just going to force feed the ball to Cam Thomas all game. Oh, God, that's nasty.
But it's low-key kind of fun. I'd be tapped in. I'm tuning into those games. Don't get it twisted.
Take 75 shots and 48 of them are going to come from Kaminga and Cam Thomas.
Exactly. That's good hoops right there. That's good hoops. Okay. Last two things I want to talk about. One is, what do you make of LeBron James accepting the player option?
Him accepting the player option would initially, without like reading into anything else, which is I thought Last Dance. That's where my mind immediately went. I think he's done after this year. I think if Bron was serious about going an additional year after this, I think he would have just opted out and signed a 1+1 with the Lakers. But him opting in, one, actually gives him more flexibility, which we can kind of address. And then two, it leaned into my theory that I think he's just done after this year.
So you think this is it?
I think this is it.
What makes you say that? Like, besides just the fact that he accepted the option, like, what, where, why do you think this is it?
This is complete, like, theory and me being a Bron fan for, like, 2.8 seconds. Part of me thinks Bron wants to kind of go out somewhat on top. Whether it's on top ring-wise, which segue into Rich Paul quote, or on top as I did not go out as a shell of myself, which to a certain extent, like Bron could play for 3 more years and he still will be just fine. But like right now, the conversations that Bron is still in as a player and in his rank as in the grand scheme of things to the entire league, the further and further we go into this, the further and further he's going to drop. We were talking about him as a top 5 player 2 years ago. Now he's Bron's top 12, and we're like, that's fine. You're a 40-year-old, but I think somewhat of Bron wants to be like, I'm going to go on my shield and go out as a all-NBA caliber guy still.
I don't know what to make of it. Like, I see that point of view. I also see, like, what if he's like, I still got work to do. I got 4 championships. And then he, like, takes a cheaper deal with Cleveland or something like that, or goes to San Antonio. Like,
don't do my go like that. Oh, no.
There's a part of me that's like,
agendas will be nasty.
Oh, 100%. But he's done it before. It's not like it's out of his nature to go.
New.
Like, and it's like, I love LeBron. I'm a huge LeBron fan. But like, there's definitely a part of me that would love the spectacle of 42-year-old LeBron or whatever in year 24.
F you and me. My last dance is going to be in San Antonio.
Right, and it's like, I'm going to freaking get this 66 championships, dude. There's nothing you can say about it. And I'm going to be a contributor for all 6 of them. Obviously, he doesn't need the championships. This guy is stamped as any athlete could ever be. But I do think that's easily the funniest scenario. Like,
hilarious.
Goes to Minnesota, and he's like, let's go, Ant.
And then age 43, still a starting level player at this point. All right, Wemby, you ready to go? All right, let's load up the saddle one last time.
47 years old, like Steph. You got it in. 41-year-old Steph. You good, bro?
You can still shoot, bro?
Yeah. LeBron, Steph, and KD and the Warriors in 2030. No, I do like, yeah, I'm kind of just wait and see with the LeBron thing. Like what?
Yeah.
I don't really know what. I have no really anticipatory thoughts anywhere.
The more interesting, I almost said important, which I guess it is. The more interesting part of the LeBron option thing is what Rich Paul said after, which essentially is saying LeBron understands that the Lakers are trying to build long term with Luka. We're a bunch of other stuff that I don't memorize off the top of my head. We're very appreciative of the Lakers for this chapter of LeBron's career. Like some of the wording looks very past tensey, and that is awful grammar, but we know what we're trying to get. It's 11:53. No, that's the more important part of the LeBron option is what Rich Paul said.
Or what if, like, I'm still stuck on this LeBron leaving thing? Like, what if he wants to stay in LA and he's like, and Chris Paul's in the Clippers, and he's like, James Harden, Chris Paul, Kawhi, Zoo, I'm coming to, why can't I think of what the arena's called?
I almost said crypto. That's LA. Shit. Oh,
That's
Intuit Dome.
Yeah, Intuit Dome. I was gonna say crypto too. Intuit Dome, which by the way had an amazing playoff debut. Shout out Intuit Dome.
What's it called? The Wall? Yeah, there you go.
Awesome stuff. Okay,
Give me a soda.
let's talk about the big move of the offseason so far. Actually, does it even count as an offseason move? It happened before Game 7. I made a tweet. I was like, I'm going to be out of town for the next week. So naturally, Kevin Durant gets traded on the day of a Game 7. Because that's just my luck, right? The day I leave for a trip, Kevin Durant gets traded, and there's Game 7 that night. So this is my first time being able to talk about the trade at all. What are you thinking about Kevin Durant to the Rockets?
I'm going to flip it to you. I want to see what your thoughts are first. Like you said, I've kind of at least had my Twitter thoughts. You haven't been able to do anything. So
yeah,
what's your thoughts?
My initial thought is, oh my goodness, this Houston team that is so elite on the margins in every single category just added one of the 5 best half-court scoring weapons on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And like, do we even need to overanalyze past that? Like, you have the best offensive rebounding team in basketball. You have elite defense at every position. You've got some of the most crazy lineup flexibility we've ever seen. You've got an elite coach who's an elite defensive coach. You've got an elite decision-making point guard. Van Vliet is the exact type of point guard you want next to Kevin Durant. Like, I really don't even need to overthink it. Like, I just look at everything Kevin Durant still brings at this point in his career. As a shot maker, as an off-ball scorer, as a mid-post isolationist. I look at everything Houston kind of has in place, and I'm like, well, the offense doesn't need to be super dynamic. Like, it can be really simple, and you can lean into those margins. The part of it that I think is getting really underrated is Kevin Durant's still a really good defender, in my opinion. And at the very least is one of the most positionally versatile defenders in the league, even at his age. And it's like, now we're looking at a Houston team that was already comfortable putting out these jumbo lineups. Like, next year, they can literally put out a lineup of Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith, Şengün, and Adams. That's crazy to me. That's so crazy to me. And, like, you look at that lineup, and it's like, wait, they're actually not sacrificing offense very much? Because Kevin Durant is one of those few players who's kind of immune to spacing concerns because of his ability to just go over the top of defenses with his shot making. Yeah, I don't necessarily think this move makes them tier 1 contenders. Like, I still wouldn't stack them up against OKC right now, unless there's like a big leap from Şengün or a big leap from Amen Thompson or Jabari Smith, which obviously is its own thing. But I do think that, like, losing Dylan Brooks kind of hurts. I don't really worry about them losing Jalen Green. Like, sure, you lose your most dynamic pick and roll scorer, but okay, we're just going to shift the offense to more of a mid-post isolation type of thing. Mm-hmm. Van Vliet, Amen, KD, Jabari, Şengün is a nasty starting 5.
So when the trade first happened, I think this was before they re-signed Fred VanVleet. So my initial reaction was a slightly more pessimistic in the sense of cool, but compared to last year, if we remove Fred VanVleet from the equation, I'm like, compared to last year's team, this is somewhat like they're better, yes, but in the grand scheme of things, like okay, they don't move me that much still.
Are they better if you take off VanVleet, Brooks, and Green and just give them KD? I don't think they're better.
They got better. Like they added a better player. Like they
Yeah.
They added a better player. Great, but like they don't move me at all.
Right.
That was my initial take after the trade, and I kind of got some flack for it. But them extending or bringing back Fred VanVleet at a bargain of a contract, I feel. Specifically, like we talk about Austin Reeves' contract, for example, but specifically what guards around the league have been getting paid recently. Fred VanVleet, 2 years, basically $50 million with the player option the second year. Yeah, that's kind of a steal. Now, probably what she have gotten the first time in terms of value, but they overpaid. And it honestly, them overpaying for Fred VanVleet honestly paid off for him in the overall outlook. The bigger question, in my opinion, is do they extend KD? That's one of the more interesting storylines for Houston's long-term outlook. Do they extend KD? What does the Kevin Durant extension look like? He's playing in the last year of his current contract. I think one of the things you hit on that is easily the most fascinating part about Houston is the fact that, godly, man, they could just go with all the size.
Mm-hmm.
With almost any combination of lineup. Literally just remove Fred VanVleet and you have 7 different options to play with and be fine.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, and I think you touched on it at the end, the biggest thing that'll jump this team up into tier 1 contenders in the West would just be a clear leap from one of their other guys.
Yeah.
Like Sengun going to all-star to all-NBA caliber big, or Amen Thompson taking that very clear step that we are all like, I've never seen the NBA Twitter or just content community so locked in on one player and all like pretty much in unison, like, yes, Amen Thompson is a player. Yes, this breakout's about to happen. Yes. And even to a point, maybe this is me. I don't want to undervalue Amen Thompson taking a breakout, but I feel like to a certain extent, you would almost need that and something else. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or, Reed Shepherd coming in and like, okay, cool, this was a top 5 pick in that draft. Or if you could get anything out of Cam Whitmore going into year 3, can Jabari Smith on the second contract, pretty good value actually, be a consistent force for you on both sides of the floor. So there's some things that Houston could do for me at least to make them a tier 1 contender. Keeping Fred, my biggest concern was, God, they have no playoff level playmaking, in my opinion. Keeping Fred, you have him as your pick and roll or just half court operator in general in terms of playmaking. Sengun could be a post playmaker. Like there's, a man as a downhill, just paint touch guy. They have enough. So they're going to be in the lead defense again. One of the 3 best defenses in the league next year.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. I think the big thing is, I want to go back to VanVleet for a second. The dude never turns the ball over. He's one of those guys that we talk about with like the Halliburton, the Chris Paul, the Shea, the Brunson, like one of those guys who just never turns the ball over. It feels like he never makes a wrong decision. And yeah, the scoring is up and down and volatile because it's reliant on the 3 ball. But when he hits those heights, like the Golden State series, he started off really cold and then from that point on played like an all-star to finish out the series. And they almost take that 1-7. Yeah, I fully agree that like this Kevin Durant trade just makes them better on both ends. And they were already a 50-win team that pushed the Golden State to 7 games with a healthy Steph Curry. So, or actually, I think he had a nagging injury, but like, you know what I mean? Steph Curry was on the court. I want to ask you, like, what if the season started tomorrow, where would Houston rank among Western Conference contenders?
OKC, tier 1, tier 2.
Like Houston's easily in the mix for number 2, right?
The first 4 teams that come to my mind in no particular order is Clippers, Minnesota, Denver, Houston.
Yeah. I'm with you. Sneaky San Antonio.
San Antonio, Dallas, Lakers are all in maybe.
Oh wait, Dallas. I would have Dallas in that second tier actually. Assuming health on Dallas, because you don't know. Like they could have Kyrie, AD, like they could all be out, and it's like okay, now it's just the Cooper Flag show. But
Lakers
yeah, I do
is
think,
like what do you do roster wise this summer?
Wait, what were you saying?
I was saying Lakers for me is very clearly just what do you do roster wise
yeah,
this
100%.
summer?
Yeah, get your center, get some more defensive guards, get more athletic. 100%. Last question. The other side of the Kevin Durant trade.
Is this our longest show?
The Phoenix. No, I feel like we've gone over. Have we gone to 2 hours? I feel like we've gone
longest show in a while.
Longest show probably since before the playoffs. Actually, the Phoenix side of the Kevin Durant trade. What do you make? I will say before you go, for years the conversation has been what are the Suns gonna do with the centers, and they've walked out of this offseason so far with Mark Williams and Kaman Maluwak. So kudos to the Suns.
Now they have all the centers and all the shooting guards, all the two guards, and all the centers. They have nobody else in play.
Like, yeah, we can keep this brief because I really don't want to talk about it. But like, what do you think Phoenix can do from here? And like, what should they do? And what do you think they're gonna like? What the heck are the Suns doing right now?
I don't know how, but the number one thing is like, dog, anything for Bradley Beal. I would at the very least experiment for a year with Book and Jalen Green. For a year, I would at least try it. I think you damn near have to.
Yeah.
You have Dylan Brooks, you have Ryan Dunn as your wing stoppers and defensive guys that can bring some energy for you. I like both of them a lot, actually. I think Dylan Brooks gets a lot of hate, and some of it's justified for just like the character he plays. Honestly, like he is kind of a prick, but in terms of value on the court, I think he is kind of a culture setter to a certain extent.
He's a really good player. I really like Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, like I mean, Draymond kind of buried him on his podcast. That also didn't help Dylan Brooks' PR, but brought some toughness and some culture to Memphis. Went to Houston, a super young team, brought some culture and some toughness to that Houston team. There's one thing Phoenix can use right now, some culture and some gosh darn toughness, and he's going to do that. Mark Williams, when he's actually healthy, is a pretty fine to good defensive big. He's fine at the very least, and I actually really, really do like Kamal Malawach. I'm seeing what like anything for Bradley Beal. Like you even paid. I'm doing anything in my power to get off Bradley Beal. Seeing if we can run with Bookin and Jalen Green for a year, and then honestly reevaluate 26-27.
Yeah, I think I'm with you because I just want to wait. Another team that I'm wait and see with. Just like what can you do from here? I at least like that they're getting active at the very least, like doing something, instead of just rotting in this mediocrity. But
I think they do something else. They're still a second apron team for a team that's
not gonna
comfortably not a play-in team. I don't think they're a play-in team.
Yeah, that's probably. Any other thoughts on any teams or player? Because there's a lot of stuff we obviously skipped over. A lot of draft picks, a lot of signings and whatnot. I tried to get all of the heavy hitters. Is there anything I missed or anything else you kind of just want to talk about?
I feel like we maybe covered everything. Only thing, I guess last question to you, what would be your East like rankings then? As of right now,
Eastern Conference rankings right now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go 1 Cleveland.
Is this tier 1?
Tier 1, yeah, and they're in the tier of their own. As long as Boston and Indiana are out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. After that, I'm gonna go New York. I trust their health more. I trust New York's health a lot, so I'll put them 2. I'll go. Am I crazy? I'm looking at Philly. I'm looking at Orlando. Looking at, dare I say, Indiana. Still. Like, I feel like they're still going to be really good. Not like finals good, but they're still probably going to be really good without Halliburton. Even though he's the one that pushes that ceiling. Detroit is in this mix as well. There's still a lot of
I've completely forgot about Detroit this entire episode.
yeah, like they're sneaky good still. Milwaukee still has Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, I'm just gonna duck your question, dude. I'm not ranking these teams. I'm going one Cavs, two Knicks, and after that, I'm just waiting. I'm not ranking them.
Oh.
Too early, dude. The season ended like 6 days ago.
We didn't get this bail for the West.
I'm not ranking them. I'm not
I think it's
ranking
fair.
them.
I'd have Cleveland in a tier of their own. I'd actually have New York in a tier of their own, too.
Yeah,
I think every other team has just too many question marks.
Yeah.
I'd group Orlando, Philly. I'd have Atlanta, Detroit, and Indiana, if I didn't say Indiana already.
That makes
all in a
sense.
tier of like possibles, like possibly threatening, but too many questions, basically.
If we're throwing Indiana in there, like, is Boston worthy of being in this mix?
I trust Indiana more.
I do too. But, like, Boston might be such a good three-point shooting team that they just end up winning, like, 47 games.
I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, but in the like East hierarchy, okay, let's say Boston wins 47, Indiana wins 45. I think it's still plausible that Indiana, in terms of threatening to come out or threatening to do damage, I would still potentially lean Indiana.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the East, because there could just be a sleeping giant that takes a big leap. Like, what if Orlando is just like this 56 win team?
Yeah.
Paolo takes a leap, Franz takes a leap, Desmond Bane moves the needle. They go out and get. I still think, like, I understand the Wendell Carter thing. I think he's a good big. I don't think he's a good big for Orlando's roster construction, and that's something I've been saying for years. I would much rather see like DeAndre Ayton in that spot. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what happens with all these teams. Any last thoughts? On anything?
NBA rocks.
NBA rocks. Yes, we just capped off an amazing season.
Start to year 2. Season 2.
Yeah, this is start of season 2. When I upload on Spotify, there's like a season, like which season is this? And this will be season 2, episode 1. So shout out to us, man. We made it through a full season of podcasting. The most active and consistent podcast on the internet. You guys already know. No, all jokes aside, we really appreciate you guys listening to all of last season's stuff and today's episode. If you somehow stuck through an hour and 45 minutes of this yap, follow us on social media. Sean's on Twitter at Sean_DAVI and on Instagram at Sean_Davis23. He's on YouTube at The Sports Headline Show and the Los Angeles Lakers Network. I'm on all platforms at Tyler Britton_ or Hoop Venue. Of course, my main content is on YouTube at Hoop Venue. Can't wait to get this offseason content underway, man. We'll be talking trades. We'll be talking free agency. We'll probably even do a lot of historic stuff, so stay tuned for that. And, yeah, appreciate you guys listening, and we'll catch you guys next time for episode number 54.